My in-laws tried to break me, but my husband chose me over his entire family. Posted to r/true off my chest. It started like every other story where the red flags looked like rose petals at first. I, 32F, married my husband Daniel, 34M, 6 years ago. We were college sweethearts. He was the calm to my storm, the man who made me feel like home wasn't a place, but a person. His family, however, let's just say they were a different beast entirely. Daniel's parents, Margaret and Charles, are the epitome of old-school elitism. Think perfectly manicured lawns, 6-course dinners, and an obsession with appearances so suffocating it could drown out truth itself. I was never the ideal daughter-in-law. I grew up working class. My father was a mechanic, my mother a nurse. We didn't have summer homes or trust funds. We had each other, and that was enough. Apparently, it wasn't for them. From the moment we got engaged, Margaret made it clear she had concerns. She'd say things like, "Daniel, are you sure she's not just marrying into the name?" Or, "It's not personal, dear. I just always pictured someone more refined." Still, I smiled. I tried. I wanted to believe that love could bridge the gap between their world and mine. Couldn't. After our wedding, which they insisted be held at their country club and then criticized every single detail of, the slow sabotage began. Margaret would accidentally exclude me from family photos, then crop me out of the ones I made it into. Charles would correct my grammar in the middle of conversations. His sister Jenna? She would loudly whisper at dinners about how poor girls always get clingy. Daniel saw it, and to his credit, he always called them out. But it was like trying to plug a leaking dam with paper towels. Eventually, you get tired. I thought things might change when I got pregnant with our daughter, Emma. For a brief moment, Margaret seemed warmer. She sent gifts, offered to help with the nursery, even apologized for being cold. I was stupid enough to believe it. I let her in. The day Emma was born, Margaret showed up with a professional photographer and a full glam team for herself. I hadn't even showered, but she insisted on a 4-generation legacy photo, with me cut out. I told Daniel. He was furious. He told them off. They backed off briefly, but when Emma was 1, the real betrayal happened. Daniel had taken a short work trip. I was home with Emma. One evening, his parents came over unannounced, saying they wanted to babysit. I was hesitant, but they insisted, and Emma loved them. I let them take her for what they promised was an hour to the park. 3 hours passed. I called. No answer. For hours. Still nothing. Finally, they returned with smug smiles and no apology. Emma was fine, but I was livid. Margaret looked me in the eye and said, "You need to learn to trust people with more experience. You're too emotional to be a good mother." That night, I told Daniel everything. I thought this would be another blow-up argument that would end in vague promises and apologies from his side. But it wasn't. He stared at me for a long time and said quietly, "They're not seeing our daughter without one of us present. Ever again." The next day, he changed the locks, blocked his parents on his phone, called them and said, "You disrespected my wife for the last time." Margaret cried. She blamed me. Told the entire family I had manipulated Daniel into abandoning them. Jenna posted passive-aggressive quotes on Facebook about sons who forget who raised them. But Daniel never wavered. He looked at me one night, held my hand, and said, "I didn't marry them. I married you, and I'm building a life with you, not their expectations." We've been on low contact since. Emma is thriving. We're peaceful, finally. But recently, rumors have reached us about a scheme they've been working on behind our backs involving Daniel's inheritance and a secret trust fund. And now, they've lawyered up. I don't know what their endgame is yet, but I know this: they're not done with us. But neither am I. Update 1. They hid a secret trust fund from Daniel and tried to cut him out completely. Posted to r/true off my chest 1 week later. So, things escalated. After posting my story here, I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a few comments, maybe some support. What I wasn't expecting was a call from Daniel's childhood friend, Nate, someone he hadn't talked to in over a year. Nate said he'd seen my post. He suspected it was about Daniel's parents, and he needed to talk. Apparently, last year when Nate's father, who's a retired financial advisor, was doing some estate planning for a few clients, Margaret and Charles's names came up. He remembered because Charles kept referring to a generational wealth trust, something they'd set up decades ago, originally intended for Daniel and any future heirs. Except here's the kicker. Charles later requested an amendment to the trust, one that would bypass Daniel completely and reassign the entire benefit to Jenna's son, their golden grandchild. That trust? Worth just under $4 million. When Nate's father asked if Daniel had consented to being removed, Charles allegedly scoffed and said, "Daniel won't mind. He has his wife and his pride. He doesn't need our money." Daniel didn't know. When Nate told us this, Daniel looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. I'll never forget his face. Not anger, not sadness, but betrayal. Deep, wounding, like a truth he'd never wanted to believe was suddenly screaming in his face. I didn't say anything. I just sat beside him, held his hand. For once, I wasn't the one being targeted. But it didn't feel like a victory. It felt like family breaking apart in real time. That night, Daniel pulled out an old lockbox from his closet. I'd never seen it before. Inside were handwritten letters, cards, even old Christmas photos. At the bottom was a document he hadn't looked at in years. A letter from his grandfather, the man who originally funded the trust. It said, "This is for you, Danny. Someday, when you need to protect your own family, I hope this gives you strength." Daniel broke down. He realized then that his parents had been planning this for years. That every time they pushed him to spend more time with Jenna's son, every time they undermined my role in our home, they were slowly building a legal path to cut him out entirely. We contacted a lawyer, a good one, and sure enough, the amendment had gone through. Without Daniel's signature, without his knowledge, which is, by the way, completely illegal. You can't remove a primary beneficiary from a trust without their consent, unless the trust language allows it, and this one doesn't. Our lawyer filed for an injunction the next day. What did we get in response? A formal letter from Margaret's attorney accusing me of poisoning the family bond and claiming I manipulated Daniel into legal action for personal financial gain. They really don't see me as a person, just an obstacle. But Daniel, my incredible husband, read the letter, ripped it in half and said, "They want a war? Then let's give them one. I'm done letting them make me feel guilty for living my own life. We've subpoenaed the documents. Court proceedings begin in a few weeks." Meanwhile, Charles had the audacity to email Daniel asking for a civil conversation to de-escalate this foolishness. The subject line? Family first. Daniel didn't even open it. He just blocked the email. But here's what really got to me. We found out that Jenna knew all along. She was present at the signing of the amendment. She witnessed it. She signed as a second party, agreeing that her son would inherit instead. She never once spoke to Daniel about it. Never asked him. Never warned him. The trust was meant to protect Daniel's future, his child's future, and they tried to erase it, to punish him for loving me, for choosing peace over obedience. This isn't just about money anymore. It's about legacy, justice, and dignity. We're going to court. We're going to fight. And this time, they don't get to write the story. Update 2. The courtroom battle and the secrets they buried with his childhood. Posted to our /TrueOffMyChest 3 weeks after last update. The court proceedings started this week. And I swear, it didn't feel like we were just walking into a legal hearing. It felt like we were walking into a funeral. Except the body wasn't a person. It was trust. Daniel looked strong, but I knew better. His hands trembled slightly when we took our seats. He didn't wear a suit like Charles did. He wore a navy sweater, the same one his grandfather gave him the year before he passed. It was like armor, not against them, but for himself. Margaret, of course, came in wearing pearls and a smug smile. Jenna was behind her, not looking at us. Charles didn't even bother pretending to be polite. He glared, like Daniel was some traitor ruining their empire. We sat across from them, but the distance between us felt cosmic. Our attorney began by outlining the timeline, the creation of the trust, the original terms, and most importantly, the illegal amendment made without Daniel's knowledge. Then came the bombshell. Nate's father took the stand. He's not just a financial advisor. He's a retired estate attorney. And his testimony? It destroyed their credibility. He confirmed that Charles and Margaret met with him in private to update the documents. He specifically asked whether Daniel had consented. Charles said, "He's too soft. He'll go along with it. His wife wears the pants now anyway." Verbatim. I watched Daniel's jaw clench. He didn't say a word. But then came the documents our lawyer had unearthed during discovery. Records from Daniel's childhood therapist. See, back in college, Daniel had told me vaguely that he'd gone to therapy after a bad year in middle school. He never shared details. Turns out, the bad year was the year Charles sent him to military camp without consent. A brutal, discipline-based, off-the-books camp designed to toughen up boys deemed too emotional. Daniel was 12. The therapist's notes, subpoenaed legally, included detailed accounts of Daniel returning home with bruises, panic attacks, and signs of emotional trauma. Margaret never took him to a doctor. She told the therapist, "He's being dramatic. Boys need discipline." I felt my stomach turn. Daniel looked like he couldn't breathe, but he nodded at the lawyer to continue. The judge asked if this history was relevant. Our lawyer calmly explained, "This isn't just a financial manipulation. This is generational emotional abuse. The trust was meant to protect the very person they spent decades undermining. And now, they've tried to strip it from him to reward the sibling who enabled it all." Jenna finally spoke. Through tears. Fake or not, I couldn't tell. She claimed she had no idea Daniel wasn't informed about the amendment, that she trusted Mom and Dad to handle everything, that she only signed because they promised Daniel agreed. Our lawyer turned and asked one question. "You didn't think it was odd that your brother, the original heir, wasn't at the signing of a document removing himself from his own legacy?" Jenna broke down. She had no answer. The judge adjourned for the day after that. Outside, in the parking lot, Margaret tried to approach Daniel. She had the audacity to reach out like she still had some maternal right to his forgiveness. He stepped back and said, "I needed a mother. You needed an heir. Let's stop pretending we ever had the same goal." She stood frozen. That was the first time I saw fear in her eyes. Not sadness. Not regret. Just the slow realization that the control she'd held over him for 3 decades had snapped like a rotten branch. Later that night, Daniel asked me something I'll never forget. He said, "Do you think I'm too broken to be a good dad to Emma?" I told him the truth. "You're not broken. You're healing. You're the cycle breaker. And she'll grow up knowing her father stood up. Not just for her, but for himself." He cried in my arms. The court has yet to rule. But I know where this is headed. And win or lose, Daniel already did what most people never have the strength to do. He chose truth over comfort. And I will stand by him the way he stood by me. We've faced their lies. We've survived their silence. Now we're ready for their reckoning. Final update. The verdict, the confrontation, and finally, peace. Posted to our /TrueOffMyChest 1 month later. I took a deep breath before writing this. Not because I don't know what to say, but because part of me still can't believe it's over. We went back to court the following Monday. This time it felt different. Not like a battle, but like a reckoning. The judge had reviewed the documents. The trust language, the therapist records, the email exchanges between Jenna and Margaret, which were recovered during discovery and revealed they coordinated behind Daniel's back. All of it. The courtroom was silent when the judge spoke. He ruled that the trust amendment was invalid. Legally, Daniel remains the primary beneficiary. The trust will pass to him and his legal heirs, our daughter Emma. Jenna's son was removed as a beneficiary. The judge cited clear malicious intent and concealment by Charles and Margaret, and accused them of deliberate manipulation of a legal instrument with the aim to punish familial independence. The judge also ordered Margaret and Charles to pay all court costs and legal fees, and for once they couldn't talk their way out of it. Margaret sat stone-faced. Charles looked like a man who'd aged 10 years in a single hour. Jenna cried. Whether out of guilt or embarrassment, I don't know. And honestly, I don't care anymore. The moment the ruling was read, Daniel exhaled so deeply it sounded like he'd been holding his breath for 30 years. He squeezed my hand, said nothing, but I saw it in his eyes: relief, pain, freedom, all tangled into one. We left the courtroom quietly. There were no cheers, no grand speeches, just quiet steps echoing down long, cold hallways. Like the end of a war nobody ever really wins. But there was one final confrontation. Came 3 days later. Charles showed up at our house unannounced. I was out grocery shopping with Emma. Daniel opened the door. He told me everything when I returned. Charles didn't come to apologize. He came to warn Daniel. He said things like, "You may have won in court, but you've embarrassed the family. Men don't turn against their blood. You let your wife take control, and that's going to ruin you." Daniel told him something that still gives me chills. He said, "You're right about one thing. Men shouldn't turn against their blood. But I didn't turn against my blood. You did. The day you tried to turn me into something I wasn't. The day you put money above your own son. The day you thought love was control. My wife didn't take control. She reminded me what it looks like to be human." Then he closed the door in his father's face. No screaming, no drama, just closure. We've since changed our numbers. Daniel's therapist helped him draft a letter. Not for them, but for himself. Putting into words everything he endured as a child. He burned it in our backyard fire pit last week. Said it felt like finally letting go. We've started a new tradition with Emma. Every Sunday afternoon, we walk through the park together and talk about the good things. No phones, no noise. Just us, our family, the real kind. Not built on money or legacy or obedience. Built on love, truth, and choice. Daniel's inheritance is secure now. But more importantly, so is his peace. For the first time, the future doesn't look like something we have to earn or fight for. It looks like something we can build. Together. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's this. Blood doesn't make a family. Loyalty does. Thank you all for listening, for standing by us, and for reminding me that healing isn't just possible. It's worth it. Thank you for stepping into another tale with me. Every story unlocks a different world, and I'm glad you were here for the journey. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to My Stories Unchained, where every ending is just the beginning of another adventure. Until next time, keep your mind open and your heart ready for the next story, Unchained.